Live from the Coors Light Studios, it's time for the Rip City Drive, hosted by the crazy and often irrational Chad Doing. Coors Light, mountain cold refreshment. Choose chill.
Shot clock, game clock at 8. Now he drives, he spins, he launches, he scores the basket with 4.4 seconds to go. No timeouts for the Blazers. Here they come. Avdia on the run. He misses, and the Kings with one of the most improbable victories we have seen in recent years.
While you're down there, would you mind
Rip City Drive?
me?
I think we're still on the air, Tim. No, we're not, are we?
Inbound to Avdia, down to 3. Avdia throws up a prayer. It's off the mark, and the Kings win. Wait, there's a foul! They called a foul! Mark Davis called a foul! They called a foul! And Denny Avdia will go to the line.
Late whistle, late whistle, but right whistle.
Strap in. The Rip City Drive with Chad Doing starts now.
All right, this is awesome. It's not too often I get to start the show out with a guest, but it's going to happen today. I'm at Spirit Mountain Casino, your place to bet on college sports, sitting in the BetMGM Sportsbook and getting ready for the college football playoff, which kicks off tonight, Oklahoma and Alabama. And Oregon kicks off tomorrow at 4:30 with a triple-header in the playoff. And joining me right now is the sportsbook manager, Justin Ballinger. You're quickly becoming my favorite radio guest, my friend. I had so much fun talking with you last week, and I watched – and the game we identified as being a little bit suspicious was that New Orleans home game as they were taking on Carolina. All the action was on one side, Carolina, and the line did not really move throughout the course of the week. And so I watched it, and sure enough, New Orleans, in the end, last-second field goal, game over. Right. Amazing.
Crazy. It's weird how it works sometimes, you know.
I love it. So let's dive into these games. Let's start with the game tonight, Alabama and Oklahoma. These two teams met just a few weeks ago. The Sooners got the win. The line is close. What's the latest line here at Spirit Mountain?
So we have the Sooners as a 1.5-point favorite currently. However, this line has flipped 3 times now between Bama 1.5, Oklahoma 1.5.
And why is that, do you think? Is that smart money? Is it public money? What causes a repeated shift in line movement?
You know, well, it's nowadays it's rare to see, you know, a sports book actually put out like a half-point spread. It's also, you don't see ones as often anymore. So a lot of times the 1.5 is kind of the turning point when it'll go from dog to favorite, and then they'll just, you know, adjust the juice on the money line to, you know, give that secondary option for that 1 point there. So I think that's kind of what we are seeing with it flipping back and forth so many times.
So I know, and we'll get to the Oregon game in a moment, I know the majority of action here at Spirit Mountain right now is on the Duck game tomorrow against James Madison. How much action have you taken on Oklahoma, Alabama?
A pretty good amount, actually. So far, it's the second most bet game. I mean, It is, of course, the first game up, so that might be part of the reason. But it's one of the closest 50-50 split games that I've seen for like a big-time college football game this season. So, you know, clearly the odds makers can't decide by the line flipping, and it seems like bettors can't decide either.
What do people think about the total, which is currently 40.5 here at Spirit Mountain Casino? Two great defenses. I think the last time they played it went to 43. It could be a low-scoring game. What are you seeing there?
Yeah, I agree. And like we kind of touched on before we started on air here is, you know, both of the offenses have really sputtered, I guess, down the stretch. You know, John Mateer coming back from that injury hasn't been near the same. And then Simpson, you know, I saw his last 4 games. You know, I think he has 5 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. So kind of weird, slow going for the offenses right now, and the defense is being so good and so tough. I think it's going to be really hard for teams to move the ball. I would expect it to be a one-possession game.
Now at 40.5, so 41 would be a key number in a total because there's many different score combinations, 31-10, 24-17, many combinations that can reach 41, right?
Correct, yeah.
Oh, very interesting. All right, so pretty much 50-50, and that includes sides, totals, teasers, everything then.
Yeah. And actually, we do have a little more bet on the under.
Oh.
I think just the narrative around this game has been kind of about the
defenses.
defenses. So, yeah. So
okay, that's great. So the Ducks tomorrow taking on James Madison. Where did the line open, and where are you at right now here at Spirit Mountain Casino, which is different than maybe other sports books around the country because you're going to get an inordinate number of Duck bets here.
Right. So it opened at 20.5, which is what what it kind of did across the country. And within the first day, we actually were at 21.5. And as the market settled, late the last few days, James Madison money has come in. So the line in a lot of books is back down to 20.5. We're currently at Oregon minus 21, so we're sitting right there on that key number. But yeah, in terms of money and tickets, we're not finding very much James Madison support.
Okay, so just a quick reminder, Spirit Mountain Casino, this is your place to bet on college sports, and the best part is you can get action in on the Oregon Ducks throughout the course of the entire college football playoff. Now, I would imagine for you won't necessarily be pulling for the Ducks to cover the number tomorrow, correct?
That's safe to say that's a possibility.
Well, here's what I know about James Madison, and I think that most people are not familiar with James Madison. I've talked to a couple of people, including Alex Brink, who was on the call for the Washington State game that played there. They're really good defensively, and their quarterback is a mobile guy that we've seen the Ducks struggle with at times throughout the course of the year. So maybe there is an opportunity for James Madison, who's up against it a bit, to be able to keep that game closer than what maybe most people think.
Yeah, and I mean, you always, when you're such a big underdog going into these games this big, then you kind of have, there's the wiggle room to surprise people, I guess, is what I'm trying. Not necessarily win the game, but you might keep it closer than most people think for a lot longer during the game.
Yeah, that's very interesting to me. And I think the other thing, too, with the college football playoff, this is only year number 2 of having campus site games, right? Last year, all the home teams in that first round did exceptionally well, but we don't have a large enough sample to really know long-term how that home field advantage is going to pay off.
Right. And, last year, too, we had like ASU and Boise State getting the byes, whereas those teams now aren't. So it's kind of a different, you have, not to knock Tulane and James Madison, but you have a little bit of the lesser teams now also having to go on the road against these powerhouses. So, I see where the trend's starting. In my eyes, I see where it's going with that home field. But, that's also part of the selection process. You played all year to be rated higher to have that first game at home.
Now, a lot of people like to wait until game day. So how much more action on the Ducks would you anticipate between now and the kickoff time at 4:30 tomorrow?
I think we'll see a lot more action, weather permitting, of course. Just because the weather has been so poor, I think a lot of people are maybe saving their trips to come in over the weekend. Not really worth driving out in that stuff on a Thursday afternoon necessarily, but I think we still have a lot more action that we're going to see, and that goes for all 3 games tomorrow, not just the Oregon game. I think there's a lot more room for betting to be had.
We're talking to Justin Ballinger, the sportsbook manager here at Spirit Mountain Casino. Love having him on the show. Miami and Texas A&M, that's the morning kickoff tomorrow, 9 o'clock on ABC and ESPN. Probably a very close game. The line would indicate that. What's the latest line here for A&M and Miami?
Yeah, we're right now A&M is a 3.5-point favorite, which is where it opened at. And it's not quite as close as Bama and Oklahoma, but A&M's seeing about 59-60% of the tickets and the money so far. So fairly close, but with a definite edge to A&M. So we'll see.
All right, good. So will you be pulling for Miami in that game then?
Long term, Miami is one of the teams that we're cheering against here at Spirit Mountain, just in terms of odds that were out there and the futures and the payouts and stuff. So I personally wouldn't mind seeing A&M knock them out.
Yes.
As for the spread, though, at this time, it's close enough where I let the boys play. We'll see what happens.
Okay, that makes sense. But so same thing with the Ducks, right? Like you probably took a lot of action on the Ducks for future bets.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, they're always going to be, our biggest liability. But going into the future, Miami is actually our second biggest liability behind Oregon right now.
Why do you think Miami? Is it because of the odds they got before the year?
Yeah, that and once they got that second loss, the media kind of wrote them off as like, no, now they can't mathematically get back in.
Oh, so people jump on because they're getting good odds.
Right. So we had a stretch, where they were well over 100-1 for good periods of time, and some smarter people hit it during that.
I like Miami in that game. I think you're getting good value at 3.5. What's your take on that one?
I do too. A&M, they haven't shown me much the last 5-6 weeks. The scary South Carolina game, I know they came back and won, but that was a cause for concern. And then the Texas, and now they didn't get a chance to play in the SEC championship game coming off a layoff. We'll see. And Miami seems to have all arrows pointing up. And I'm a big college basketball guy, and every year that last team who makes March Madness, they always seem to have that chip on their shoulder, and they always end up winning a game or two.
Interesting.
I'm wondering if that translates to football here with Miami.
I like their experience at quarterback. I love the way they've played at the line of scrimmage, offensive and defensive lines. I think it's Duck fans like to hate on Cristobal, and they expect him to make a bad decision. But I like Miami tomorrow. Now, the other game, what are you seeing with Tulane and Ole Miss? What's the current line here at Spirit Mountain Casino? That game will kick off at 12:30 on TNT.
Yeah, we got Ole Miss at 17.5-point favorite right now. And this game's actually much closer to how the Oregon game is shaped up. It's pretty much been essentially all Ole Miss money so far. Not nearly as much as the Oregon game has received, but not many Tulane bettors out there, at least as of now.
Interesting. Do you have any take on that game at all?
That's to me, it's kind of like the weird game, right? With the Lane Kiffin thing, and Ole Miss doesn't have a coach, but they were still firmly in the playoff.
Yes.
And but they played Tulane earlier this year, and I know they beat them up pretty good. And
yes.
So I don't know. Unless the coaching thing drastically affects Ole Miss, I don't see how it's going to be that close of a game. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the talent should win out. Okay, good. There you have it, the college football playoff. All right, NFL action this weekend. What games are jumping out at you? Any interesting line movements or games that have caught your eye?
Yeah, there's been a few actually, but we'll start tomorrow night. There's a huge game in the NFC North with the Packers going to Chicago. Rematch of a game 2 weeks ago, and it's crazy to think how different, at least for the Packers roster, is just in 2 weeks.
Yeah, you lose two great players in your receiver and your best pass rusher, and now all of a sudden you got to go on the road against a team that's playing good football.
Yeah, and I believe I think Zach Tom's going to be out as well on the offensive line for Green Bay. Another
brutal.
So that's one where Chicago actually opened at a 1.5 dog. It did the flip to -1.5 for Chicago, and we are not getting any Green Bay action at all. It has been straight Chicago money since the line came out for us here.
Have you taken any bets on Green Bay?
About 8% of the total.
Wow.
Yeah.
So 92% of the bets coming in are on Chicago.
So far, yeah. So it's just, I don't know if it's the rematch. I know it's in Chicago. It's the injuries, or it's all the above. But that's what we're seeing so far.
That is very, very interesting. Normally the Browns laying 10.5 or getting 10.5 at home would be an auto bet. But the problem is their offense is so bad. I don't trust the quarterback in that situation. And the Bills are coming off the emotional victory. What are you seeing with the Cleveland-Buffalo game?
Yeah, it's been when we have these double-digit spreads, I've noticed, at least here at Spirit Mountain, they don't bet quite as much as games with closer spreads. It's been mostly Bills money, and the chatter that I've started hearing is with the way that the AFC playoffs are shaping up, with Drake May and Bo Nix and Trevor Lawrence, these guys going in, it's people are saying, why wouldn't I take the best quarterback? And it seems like the Bills might get in and they don't have to go through the Chiefs. They might not have to go through the Ravens, with Lamar. So we're starting to see a lot of, Bill belief coming in. And I think that'll, this obviously is just one of the stepping stones towards that. So I expect it to be pretty heavily Buffalo bet.
That's incredible. What else is jumping out at you on the NFL card?
How about that Sunday night flex game? We got New England coming off the loss, going to Baltimore.
Yes.
Ravens actually opened at 2.5-point favorites, and in my I don't know. It seems kind of, if it wasn't in Baltimore, I would think New England should definitely be the favorite.
For sure.
Line's now up to 3, -3 for the Ravens.
How much action are you taking on the Patriots here?
Most of it. We're at about 3/4 of the wagers we've seen, 75% coming in on New England so far, and that line did go from +2.5 to +3. So I don't know if, talking about that Saints-Panthers game last week, it's little similar in terms of the way the money's come in and the line's moved so far.
That's interesting because the hard part I have in my mind with Baltimore is like when I watch them play, I don't know what it is with Lamar. I just know he's probably half of what he normally is, right? Because he's had all these injuries and stuff, so I know that I don't it's hard for me to trust in what I'm seeing with the way they're playing right now.
Yeah, exactly. And, last week was obviously their most comfortable win, I think 24-0 over the Bengals that they've had in a while. And, you go look and Lamar was good, but 8 for 12 passing, 150 yards. It's like we still aren't seeing, maybe if we're seeing it for a drive or two, we're not seeing it sustained, throughout the whole game. And time's running out for him to pick it up. But, this is one of those games, I think. Like if the Ravens were to beat the Patriots, I think the rest of the AFC would be oh snap, these guys they're coming into the playoffs and not necessarily a team you want to see.
All right, college football playoff tomorrow, triple header. Ducks game will kick off at 4:30. They have 18 screens. The big screen's 165 inches, as Justin helped me find out last week. So you got to get down here. This is your place to bet on college sports. I will let you go because I know you're going to join me again tomorrow because I'll be down here live from noon to 3, and I don't want to shoot our entire wad. We got a lot more NFL to dig into. But, dude, thanks for having me down. I'm so pumped to be here. I can't wait for the games.
Absolutely. I know. It's going to be a great weekend.
All right, dude. There's Justin Ballinger, sportsbook manager. We'll come back. We're going to be joined by former Trailblazer general manager Bob Whitsitt. I'm live from Spirit Mountain Casino, your place to bet on college sports here on your home of the Blazers, Rib City Radio 620. Yeah, my guess is the Broncos' wild success this year is what's making me so happy right now. But, man, I'm loving this football season so much. I've enjoyed college football from the opening week up until right now, and I can't wait for the playoff to kick off. The Sooners and the Crimson Tide going to be in action coming up at 5 o'clock, and then we get the triple header tomorrow. Now, I will be down here once again tomorrow. I am a man on the move, so I'll be at Spirit Mountain Casino live from noon until 3. I want you to come down and join me. I'm sitting right now in the BetMGM Sportsbook. I'm looking at a bunch of cushy chairs. There's screens all around. Like, you can't turn your dome without looking at a screen that's displaying sports. We got the Stadium Bar, 10 Barrel Brewing, where you can get something to drink and eat. And look, come down and hang out and watch ball, man. It's going to be packed with Duck fans. It's going to be epic. So get down here tomorrow. I'll have some goodies to give away. There'll be some drink specials. And we get a chance to hang out in the Primo Vegas-style sportsbook in Oregon. It's the ultimate spot. So come down and join me tomorrow from noon until 3, and we'll watch the games. The first one kicks off at 9 a.m., Miami and Texas A&M. So we got great football, plus 2 NFL games tomorrow, including the Bears and Packers. And then we've got a full slate of NFL games this weekend. And, of course, if you want to bet on the Oregon Ducks, Spirit Mountain Casino is your place. So I'm pumped for the football, man. I'm loving it right now. And the Broncos are going to take on the Jaguars on Sunday in Denver. And it's going to be 61 degrees and sunny. I love that because Colorado has great weather throughout the course of the year. But I kind of wish it was snowing because Florida teams normally don't play well in bad weather. Just take a look at the Miami Dolphins. But that's going to be a great game. And that Seahawks game last night, greatest Thursday night football game that I can recall, and that was a franchise-changing win for the Seahawks. What an incredible game. And not only that, but look at how Sam Darnold was able to change the narrative within a matter of minutes. He had a couple of horrific picks. He was not having a good game. The Seahawks are down by 16, and then all of a sudden they get a phenomenal punt return for a touchdown. Darnold rolls out, converts on a 2-point conversion, and then the Seahawks are able to go back down and tie the game with a sweet touchdown pass, and then arguably the most incredible and remarkable miracle of all on that 2-point conversion, that upon further review, not an incomplete pass, but a backwards pass, which was batted by the defender, and then it kind of pinballed around, wound up in the end zone, and was picked up. That's incredible. All right, very happy to go to the phones now. The Trailblazers coming up on Monday are going to honor some Trailblazer greats of the past, the 99-2000 team that nearly went to the NBA Finals and, in my opinion, should have won an NBA championship. And so we're going to honor that team on Monday. And joining me right now is a gentleman who was the architect of that squad. I'm talking about the one, the only Bob Whitsitt, who joins the Rip City Drive. Bob, good afternoon. It is a pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks for your time.
Well, thank you. I probably could enjoy talking to you about that Seahawks game a little bit more, but happy to talk about the Trailblazers.
Well, let's talk about the game for a moment because I know that you've had strong ties to the franchise. What a great win that was. And what's remarkable about the game is that, you know, Sam Darnold struggling so much throughout a large portion of the game. But, you know, I always look at great players, guys who can, you know, overcome obstacles during the course of a game and then make big plays in the end. I just thought it was awesome for him. And that was a gutsy call to go for it on 2, the right call, and they get the win. And now are in control of their own destiny for the number 1 seed. That was awesome.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. And I got to tell you, that one 2-point conversion, let's call it the lateral, whatever you want to call it, was one of the most bizarre plays I've ever seen. And, you know, even back when I was playing football in college, I mean, it's nobody on the field had a clue. It was like, you know, it was just, I don't know, sometimes you need a little luck, and they sure took advantage of us. But anyway, very exciting game, very fun. But also fun to talk about the Blazers. They had their own little nail-biter against Sacramento.
Well, I couldn't believe that the official had the guts to make that call at the end of the game, and Denny Avdi hit the 2 free throws, which is pretty amazing. But, you know, Bob, you had such a remarkable time with the Trailblazers, and I think, did you have, 9 seasons with 50 wins or more as general manager of the Trailblazers?
Yeah, we were fortunate to make the playoffs every year, and we had some pretty competitive teams and, you know, very, very great fan base. I think I was equally proud that we were third in NBA in attendance. So Rip City always has been and always is a great place to play basketball.
There's no question. I still think one of the moves that you made that still blows me away that you don't get enough credit for is that, if I recall, you took a couple of into-the-bench guys, and you turned that into J.R. Rider, who you went to the Western Conference Finals with, and then you eventually turned Rider into Steve Smith, if I recall, and you got the best years out of J.R. Rider. That was pretty impressive.
Well, you've got a good memory. I think the J.R. deal is what I like to call a chess move. You know, to be good, you have to take a few chances, but you sort of have to know where you want to go, but you can't tell people where you want to go. And sometimes along the way, the path can be a little bumpy. But our thinking was, if we could get a guy like JR, who's very, very talented, I don't think that was the problem, and get some good years out of him and kind of get the aura off of him and make people perceive him a little differently, we might be able to move him for a really high caliber player that could be a part of the championship run. So that's kind of what we did. We had a few years with JR, and the last year we made it to the conference finals, and we were fortunate enough to be able to convince Atlanta to trade us Steve Smith, 6'8" shooting guard, former J. Walter Kennedy Citizenship Award winner, all-star, veteran Olympian, and turned out very, very well for us. So, sometimes things work out. Sometimes they don't always quite get to the finish line.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Now, I remember in your book you were talking about, a lot of general managers, when they get a job, they will often take the path of, look into the draft. They'll go through the tanking process, acquiring assets and hoping at some point to possibly hit. But when you took over the job with the Trailblazers, Paul Allen did not want any part of that because he was building a new arena and he needed to win basketball games. So can you give my listeners an idea of that conversation you had with Paul when you were talking about your chess game and how you were going to keep the Blazers relevant and winning basketball games if you were to get the job?
Well, if you remember, Portland was coming off of a fantastic run. They were a couple of years away from, what I call the Clyde Jerome Terry group that was, fantastic. They had 3 runs to the conference finals, 2 runs to the finals, and it was an excellent team, really, really, really great team. But that run was over, and it was a couple of years past. And Paul told me, we're building an arena. So my first year we were in the Coliseum for the last time, which held about 12,666. And Paul said, we're going to go to a 20,000 seater. And the community had just seen 12 straight years in the playoffs. And if we suddenly go into non-playoff mode and we have to basically sell twice as many tickets, it's not going to happen. So my job was to figure out how to take the old team, rebuild it, stay competitive, stay in the playoffs, figure out a way to regroup, and then eventually try to make another run. So we talked a lot about that. And the one thing I'll say, and philosophically, I'm against losing. I haven't found a team yet that's tanked it and tanked it and tanked it and tanked it, got any good. Some of the teams with the lottery picks that had the no-brainer number ones, Wemby, LeBron, whomever it might be, those are, pretty good on those years, but you could tank it and get the 4th pick, not the pick. So I think, philosophically, winning breeds winning. You got to draft well. You got to develop players. You got to make smart trades, smart signings. And your players got to know that you're out there to play hard every night and to win. The minute they think they can sort of coast and winning's not important, you don't have a culture. So I was on the same page with Paul. I'm not saying it would be easy. I'm not saying we could do it. But if there's a scoreboard, my job is to figure out a way for us to win. And that's what we tried to do. And fortunately, we did make the playoffs all 9 years.
Gosh, that's pretty amazing. I'm trying to put myself in your shoes. You get the job with the Trailblazers. You probably haven't even found a place to live in the Portland area yet. And all of a sudden, the franchise cornerstone, Clyde Drexler, comes in and says he wants a trade. Like, what was that like in the moment where you're still trying to get your footing with the gig and Drexler says he wants out?
Well, I knew it was coming. Paul had told me that before I took the job, he'd given Clyde a new contract I think each of the 2 previous years, and Clyde wanted another new one, or he wanted to be traded. So I knew that was, Paul turned that card over when we were interviewing, but Clyde probably didn't know that knew it was coming, so he wanted to come in the first week and make sure I was aware of it. And I told Clyde, I said, I'm not going to put you in, just play hard, be Clyde. You're one of the best players ever in this franchise, and you're a Hall of Famer. And I'll do my best to find a situation for you where you can hopefully get a championship, because, I think the franchise owed you that, if at all possible. And he knew, and some of the other guys knew, that the only way to rebuild was to move the older guys on. And they didn't quite have the ability to do it at the same level they did before, but they all were still really good players and could really help other teams. So not easy. It was kind of similar to what I inherited when I went up to Seattle the first week on the job. The cornerstone of the championship Sonic team, Jack Sikma, he wanted to be traded because the team was no longer good. So the difference there is I was a little younger. It was my first job being the president and GM, so I was pretty much untested, and it was a little trickier. I think at least by the time I got to Portland, I had a number of years and experiences under my belt. But it's never easy. You try to do the best you can when you have cornerstone players like that, because they do so much for the franchise, and they're so fun to watch, and they don't come along that often. So when you do get a player like that, I think it's incumbent upon the team to try to respect the player and help the player get to the last step in a career, which hopefully could lead to a championship.
We're talking to Bob Whitsitt here on the Rip City Drive. Now, if I recall from the book, I did not know this before, but I mean, you had a deal in place with the Sonics to send Clyde to Seattle, right? Like, that would have been a ballsy move right there.
Yeah, I did. The coaching staff in Seattle really wanted it, and Paul and I really thought long and hard about it, because we knew it would take a lot of heat in Portland if we send our best player to the arch rivals up north and win the championship. But when we got down to it, we said, look, our skin's got to be thick enough to do this. If it's the right thing for our franchise and it's the right thing for Clyde, if we're not going to win it this year, I said, it doesn't really matter who does win it, but we've got to try to do a deal that works. And the Sonics ended up not wanting to do that deal, so we had plan B, which was Houston, which was Clyde's home, and they were the defending champs. So, it still worked out good for us, and it worked out really, really well for Clyde. So, you can't just call one team up and try to make a trade. I think when you're looking to make deals, you've got to work the market pretty hard, pretty strategically. You've got to, sometimes you got to play the games differently and do things depending upon who the team is. But very happy that it worked out for both the Blazers and for Clyde.
Bob, this just came to mind, but weren't you the man behind the deal in Seattle where you used, I think, Olden Polynice and Benoit Benjamin to eventually get Sam Perkins, which turned out to be a cornerstone on the finals team?
It was Benoit Benjamin and the draft rights to Doug Christie for Sam Perkins. Yeah.
That turned out pretty good.
Yeah, no, that one turned out really well. And for many years, I'd run into Jerry West, and Jerry's probably the all-time great GM, but he'd always he's a very competitive guy. He'd always had a few other deals with Jerry over the many years, but he kind of always gave me that one kind of stuck, because he likes Sam, and I'm not saying we got one over on him, because you never get one over on him, but Sam turned out to be a really, really important player for that Sonics team. Fit our system very well, and that turned out to be a good one.
Bob, I know that, in your job, you're never going to bat 1,000. And I know that, people like you who are wildly successful, I don't know if you live with regrets, but, is there some regret when it came down to, the Trailblazers? I'm trying to think of Jermaine O'Neal. I know that you love Jermaine O'Neal. You drafted him. I don't think you wanted to move him. I think there may have been an issue with the coach, but is that one you wish you could have back, the Jermaine O'Neal situation?
I mean, of course. I mean, the first thing that I regret, and there's not a lot you can do about it, but I just, even this day, I still get a pain. I really think the 2000 team, and it's obviously very subjective. But I think it might be the best team ever to not win a championship, although there's been a few others. And really regret we didn't get to hang the banner up
I know.
in Rose Garden or now the Moda Center for the team. But Jermaine, yeah, sometimes there's just not chemistry with the coach and the player, and that happens. And sometimes you have to do what you can do. But I was very happy that when Jermaine became a free agent, I thought and Paul thought we had no chance to re-sign him. And there was about 20 teams that were making him offers. And I was, I got to admire Jermaine because he re-signed with us out of loyalty because we drafted him and we tried developing him and we created a good environment for him. But I did make a commitment to him that if after the first year on the new deal he was still not getting the playing time or was kind of getting yo-yoed, and if he wanted to be traded, we would honor that request because it's not good for his career, and that was the condition he made upon signing. So that's what happened. We got a good player back, Dale Davis, but Dale was really more of a short-term player for the next few years, and Jermaine, to me, was a cornerstone that we could have held on to for a long time. But you've got to honor your commitments in the business. If you say you're going to do something, you've got to do it. You do a lot of deals that are handshakes or your word, and as soon as you go back on that, whether it's with another team or an agent or a player, that's going to hurt you a lot in the long run. So, sure, I wish I would. If we could have Jermaine, that was clearly my number one choice. But, I'm not a dictator. Nobody is. You've got to collaborate. You've got to collaborate with your staff, with the coaches, certainly with what the owner's wishes are, and the players and agents, a lot of people. But I was proud of Jermaine. He went on and had an all-star career and did all the things we were very confident he could do.
Yeah, that was great. Jermaine was terrific, and really enjoyed watching him flourish. I'm a huge fan of Paul Allen, Bob, and I'm curious if you can kind of take us behind the scenes on the deal that saved the Seahawks. How did he make that happen?
Well, there's a lot to that deal. Paul wasn't looking to do that. Let's start with that. He had no interest in it, didn't want to do it. Likes football, but was all in on the Blazers, and that was his passion. And that's what he'd owned for quite a few years. And the Seahawks weren't even for sale. They actually had moved to Los Angeles, which, if you can imagine that, people forget that the Seahawks actually moved. It was the off season. And the politicians, the business community, the fans, everybody was trying to figure it out. The league didn't want the team to move. So, people asked me to try to get to Paul, and I sat down with him and said, look, is there an appetite? I think we got to figure out a way to keep this team. And Paul said he didn't want to do it. The team wasn't for sale. He didn't want to play in the Kingdom. He had a lot of conditions and things. But ultimately, after a lot of meetings and things, he kind of said, here's about 4 or 5 conditions that have to happen. And if they all happen, I'll step up and be the owner. And even one of those conditions was we had to get the NFL to change the cross-ownership rule, because under the current rules back then, because Paul owned the Portland Trailblazers, he was not eligible to own the Seattle Seahawks. And so at the last final meeting, after we'd gone to 4 or 5 different owner meetings, we finally got the league to vote on it, and there was another owner in the same boat as us, a guy named Wayne Huizenga, who wanted to own multiple teams also. So we had to get the politics done. We had to get the current owner to be willing to sell. There was just it was a very, very challenging year and a half, and it was, I get a little tired talking about it because it was pretty exhausting. But it worked out great. We got a new stadium built. Team played. We kind of got a losing team turned around and got it back winning. And my goodness, Seahawks. The NFL is still the big daddy in the
Yes.
U.S. and it's the team in the Pacific Northwest. And knock on wood, they're poised to. I know the season's not over yet, but sitting with the number 1 seed, they could make another run, which would be really kind of fun. But anyway, you never want to see a team leave, and certainly you don't want to see a team leave that has been well supported. So very proud that we were able to help keep the team in town, and very proud of what the team has done since.
Yeah, no question about it. Do you anticipate the NBA will eventually get another team up in Seattle?
You know, I keep hoping, I keep thinking. It's a little bit above my grade. I make my journeys out to New York and talk with the folks, and I'm involved with the league on other matters, mostly broadcast matters, and with a company I'm involved with. But honestly, I think it would be terrific for the Blazers, because the Blazers-Sonic rivalry, I think, is a great one. And
yes.
I think competition is good. I think it's fun for the fan base. But I think, having good rivalries makes you compete harder, makes you be on your toes more. I think it's good for everybody. And I'd love to see it happen, but, I don't want to predict it. If you ask me, do I think it happen? I'm an optimist, and I'll say yes, but I clearly don't have I have no authority or no first-hand knowledge to quote anybody or tell you it's going to happen, but I certainly have had my fingers crossed for years.
Well, Bob, it's been great to get a chance to catch up with you. I'm excited about Monday to honor the group that you were a part of, and you provided me and so many other Trailblazer fans with so many great memories over the years, man. It's got to be nice for you to look back on it now and see the work that you did and think, man, that's pretty cool, especially when you get a chance to reconnect with some of the coaches and players and people you're associated with. That's fun.
Yeah, no, it's great. I'm glad the organization's doing it. I'm really excited for the players, because they worked very hard, and they laid it all out there, and they had really, really good teams. And everybody enjoys being in Portland. I mean, once you're a Blazer, you're always a Blazer, and the fans
yes.
are unbelievably welcoming. They're unbelievably knowledgeable, and it's just a culture. I mean, it's really so. Now the guys obviously stay in the area, but when they get a chance to come back, it's really special the way the fans treat their players. So I'm happy for that. I'm happy for the fans, and I'm optimistic that this core group of guys they have now can start to or continue developing, and to see them get to a position where they're having their own run here in the near future, and we could start talking about maybe trying to get that banner hung again someday.
Oh, I know. Oh, by the way, how fun was that for you to finally see Arvydas Sabonis in a Trailblazer uniform? Because I went to the first preseason game when he was in a Trailblazer uniform, and Bob, I had never seen a big man with that much skill. I was like, wow, amazing.
Well, that was one of the things I asked Paul when I was interviewing. Why didn't you guys get Sabonis over here with that great team? You would have won it. And he said,
yeah.
well, the guy said we didn't need him. I said, Paul, everybody needs an Arvydas Sabonis. So the first year I spent a lot of time in Spain watching him play and trying to talk him into coming. But he's actually one of my favorite players. I know he was playing on one leg, but he was still a really, really good player.
Love
and
him.
It's kind of ironic. He had his little kids running around the practice facility. Now he got one of them who's an all-star player in Sacramento, and it's kind of neat to see how the next generation develops. But Arvydas was extremely talented, extremely fun to watch, and I think he was a fan favorite.
Well, Bob, it's been a pleasure to catch up with you. I really appreciate your time, and thanks for sharing the stories. And I just wish you continued success.
Well, thank you. And we're excited for Monday, and we're looking forward to a great game against the Pistons. We're hoping to help the crowd cheer the guys on to a victory. So it should be a fun night.
All right. Thanks a lot, Bob. I appreciate it. Enjoy your weekend.
All right. You too. Bye-bye.
All right. There you go. That's Bob Whitsitt, former general manager for the Trailblazers. Enjoyed that conversation. Andy Katz is going to join me to kind of preview what we got coming up with the tournament here in Portland this year. He's going to join at 4:20, and Joe DeLeon is talking football with me at 5:20. We'll take a quick timeout. I appreciate your time, Rip City Drive. I'm live here at Spirit Mountain Casino from the BetMGM Sportsbook on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620.
here's what we did. Christmas is about Jesus, not about Santa Claus. That's like an hour to wait. That's a big thing for us. Okay. Number two, we grow up.
Well, that's one of the all-time great songs right there, Peg, with the great Michael McDonald doing backup vocals. All right, big thanks to Bob Whitsitt. Andy Katz is going to join me at 4:20, and we'll talk with Joe DeLeon and break down the playoff at 5:20. I'm live here at Spirit Mountain Casino. I'm going to be live tomorrow noon to 3. You got to join me down here. Your place to bet on college sports. Well, I think it's about time to put out another power rankings of my children between Isaac, Kaylee, and Puppy Shots. Isaac is driving me insane right now. I'll get to that here in just a moment. But it's like, dude, stop bothering me. So I would say right now, Puppy Shots somehow has risen to number 1 in the power rankings. He's been very good at night of late. Has not been a major pain in the backside. And he's still very happy to see me when I come home. So Shots is up to number 1. Right now, Kaylee is number 2, trying to get to number 3. But she's bothering me incessantly about driving school right now because she's going to turn 16 in February. That's driving me insane. And she's asking me about cars and all this stuff that cost a lot of money. I've noticed that, at least in my experience, girls much more expensive than boys. Maybe that's just my experience, but it's like, geez, everything she wants, it's like, oh, no problem. Let me just pull another $500 out of my ass. So Kaylee, number 2, and then Isaac, based on the phone calls I have received today, is number 3. Every year, this is what happens, and this is what I've learned that works with Isaac. And for you parents out there with special needs kids, you can relate to this. But Isaac, of course, autistic. And I can tell you that for, I don't know, 18 or 19 straight years, Christmas was absolutely awful. And that's because when you have a special needs kid or an autistic kid, in this case with Isaac, we did not understand how to deal with him when it came to big family gatherings. And so Christmas, when you have a bunch of presents under the tree, you've got family there, you've got a lot of people, a lot of noise, all in the same room, the chaos and the stimulation, it's just too much. But the problem is, because I'm a moron, it took me too long to figure that out. And so Isaac would react, and then chaos would ensue, and then Christmases were ruined, usually with people being in tears because of the chaos that had ensued. So what I finally figured out a few years ago is like, wait a second. Why should I expect Isaac to be like us when he's not like us, and he's got all these other things that he's has to overcome and that he's being challenged with? So he and I, alone, the two of us, started taking road trips on Christmas Eve, and then he and I would spend Christmas together. Now, do I want to spend Christmas away from the rest of my family? No. But if I know that Isaac and I can have a good time together one-on-one and enjoy Christmas together on a road trip, and then I can provide peace for the rest of the family by doing so, I'm all for it. And so he and I now, every Christmas, we take off on Christmas Eve. We spend a couple of nights and a couple of days together. It creates peace for everyone else, and it's just a system that works. And I think what happens is when you know it is, every family's different. And based on what you have and who's there and who's not, you got to adapt and adjust and be willing to try different things. And with Isaac, that's the case because of his autism. So he and I now, for Christmas, plan road trips. Now, the problem is that with Isaac, it's always a negotiation. It's like this long battle of negotiating where we're going to go. And for Isaac, he has one simple plan in mind. He wants to go on a road trip and drive as far away from here as possible. He doesn't care about how many hours it takes. He doesn't care if it's a grind on his dad. He just wants to go as far away as possible, and preferably out of the Northwest because he wants to get to, quote, better weather. And that's just code word for I want to be on the road for as long as possible. And so he hit me up and he's like, I think I know where I want to go. And I'm like, okay, where? Manteca, California. I want to go to Great Wolf Lodge. So, of course, I've never been to Manteca, but I have a general sense of where it's at. It's like 10 hours away. And so I'm like, that's not going to work. You need to come up with a different plan. He comes back with some place that's farther. How about we go to Oxnard? And I'm like, why in the flip would you want to go to Oxnard? Are you crazy? That's like 5 hours additional to what it would have been to go to Manteca. That's not going to work. And so now we're going back and forth. You know, he's thrown out Redding, California. He's got all these places. And so I'm going through the period of negotiation. But based on the negotiation and the insistence on his part, he has now fallen to number 3 in the power rankings. So that's where we're at. I don't know where I'm going to end up driving to on Christmas Eve, but I can tell you one thing, it's not going to be anywhere close or nearby. Now, the last couple of years, we've done the beach and we've gone up to Ocean Shores, which is a reasonable distance. And it's nice out there. I like Ocean Shores, very peaceful. The weather at Ocean Shores in December is not exactly what I'd call inviting, but because of that and the fact that it's Christmas, we get to a place where it's really quiet. So we will see, but that's the process that's going on right now. But I'm telling you, if you've got a special need kid, what I've learned in my experience, and Isaac's now, I don't know, 23 or however old he is. See, he was born in 03. Yeah, he'll be 23 in, is that right? So if he's born in 03, and we're now in 25, so that's 22. Yeah, so he's going to be 23 in February. What I've learned through 22, almost 23 years with Isaac is, the less that I try to force him to be like the rest of us, the better things go. And learning to embrace the things that he loves. Now, of course, he's going to want to drive the entire distance and all the way back and the whole shebang, but that's okay. But there you go. That's it. So current power rankings, Shots, the dog has jumped to number 1. Kaylee, on her insistence of, my daughter, teenage daughter, never driven before, doesn't even have her license. You know what kind of car she wants? A Dodge Charger. Well, that's not going to happen. Why in the HE double hockey sticks do you need a Dodge Charger? Are you flipping kidding me? You want a Dodge Charger? Or do you even know what you're asking me right now? No. It's not. We're not doing a Charger, okay? I have no problem with the Dodge Charger, but I do have a problem with my teenage daughter who's going to be driving for the first time, driving a Dodge Charger. Like, what in the world's going on in your mind? No. You need to think like sedan, preferably with 2 or 4 doors. We ain't doing a Charger. No offense. Now, when you get a job and you start making some cash and you save the money and you want to buy a Charger, all for it. But I'm not giving you a rocket ship in your first car. It's not happening. What are you, crazy? I love that. I know what kind of car I want. Oh, really? Well, what would that be? A Charger. Really? Well, why not go with the Porsche? Why not we just try to find a way to get you a Ferrari? Why stop at the Charger? Let's go Corvette. Come on, honey. You got to think bigger and better than Dodge Charger. What's your problem? So anyways, insanity. Total insanity. She's number 2. And then, no. Who did I put at 3? Oh, Isaac's at 3. So Shots, Kaylee, Isaac. There you go. That's the current doing household power rankings of the children. And then Isaac's still mad at me because I brought the Leaf guys out to get rid of the rest of the Leaves. He wanted to do all the work. He was taking too long. He's still going to get paid for the work that he did. And then he was annoying the crew when they came over because he was, quote, supervising. But then after they were done, he thanked me because he's like, I'm glad they came out because that was a lot of work. I don't know if I could have gotten it all done. Exactly. But yet he's still mad at me because I brought him out. It's like sometimes as a dad, you can't win. No matter what you do, it's like, well, what can I say? I tried my best there, but that's it. That's what we do for Christmas. So, and my parents, they decided to stay over on the other side of the country. They're going to have Christmas with my brother's son and his wife because my brother just passed away. And I think that's pretty awesome. Now, the one thing I don't know, and maybe some of you know or can relate to this, but what do you, if you are 17 years old and you lose your father, how do you help someone who's a teenager going into their senior year in high school or is in their senior year in high school? How do you help them get through that? It's freaking awful, right? Like my dad has been my go-to guy for ever since I can remember. And I love the relationship with my pops now because I can call him and ask him questions. I can, ask for insight or, I guess what it is now is I just respect the wisdom that he has. Of course, when I was younger, when I was a prick, I did not appreciate the wisdom and what he had to offer. But now you start to realize how wonderful it is to have someone like your dad in your life. I can't imagine not having him around, especially when I was 17 years old. I didn't know anything about anything. So Cole, who is my brother's son, is going to have to face life without his pops, and I don't know what to do. How do you say it's going to be okay? And don't worry, it's going to be okay. You're going to be fine. Well, that's ridiculous. So I'm glad my parents are going to be there and get a chance to be with him, to provide that love and family support, which is really nice. So there you go. That's the latest with what's going on with me. Oh, I did get the phone call. I'm going in on Monday morning to the dermatology clinic in the Pearl District. I've got to get some face cancer removed, basal cell carcinoma or whatever they call it, and it's called Mohs surgery. And I know a lot of you older guys have had that. The guys I play golf with, they're like, no problem, man. I've had like 15 spots removed. So I called. I missed a phone call from the Oregon Clinic today, so I called back. And they're like, oh, we just have a few questions before your procedure on Monday. And they went down the line and started asking me a bunch of questions. Like, what the flip does this have to do with anything? Who do you live with? What do you do for work? Like, all that's like, do you really need to know? Like, when I'm lying down and that guy's cutting up my grill, does it really matter where I work? Who I live with? You kidding me? I don't know. I find those questions very bizarre. But, anywho, and what else did she ask me? Are you a smoker? Do you do drugs? You know, the whole shebang. So I got through that. So I'm going in on Monday morning to get my face cut up, and hopefully he'll only have to do a layer. And hopefully they can sew that bad boy up so I don't have too much of a scar. And we'll see how that shakes out. Miranda has chimed in, and I always love hearing from Miranda. She says, Dear Skunk Vomit, good afternoon, Mr. Doing. Would you be willing to conduct the following listeners' poll? Well, of course. Who is more insufferable? Number 1, Chad Doing when the Broncos are having success. Number 2, Oregon football fans when the Ducks are having success. Or Danny Meringue for having survived birth. I responded and said, number 1, Meringue. Number 2, Duck fans. Number 3, Chad. And she responded and said, a close call. I am inclined to agree with how you have ranked those. And then she has just chimed in again and said, didn't the Dukes of Hazzard drive a Dodge Charger? Is your daughter rocking the Daisy Duke hot pants? Thankfully, no. The Daisy Duke, let's just put it this way, Miranda. I don't want men to look at my daughter the same way that men may have looked at Daisy Duke back in the day. I will say, though, that Friday nights back in the day when I was a kid, all I know is that getting the Incredible Hulk and the Dukes of Hazzard in the same night was truly remarkable. I couldn't believe it. I get Roscoe P. Coltrane and Dr. David Banner. Like, those were the days, man. My Friday nights were the best back then. I would go over to Nana's house. She would make dinner and then pop popcorn in one of those old school poppers. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Just the good old boys. I would sit and watch Dukes of Hazzard and the Incredible Hulk. And then I would go to bed as my Nana and Papa were watching Dallas. And I would wake up for Saturday morning cartoons knowing that eventually I was going to be consuming hotcakes that my Nana had prepared. And them were the days right there. And this is a good theme song, too. And you all know this, but the TV shows of today don't have the same theme songs that we had back in the day. And I'm not being old man yelling at the clouds. I'm just saying. All right, Andy Katz is going to join me next. We'll get his take on Gonzaga and Oregon, who are going to meet this weekend. And we'll talk about the NCAA tournament coming back to the Rose City here on the Rip City Drive. Well, I'm excited for our next guest. You know him really well. He is a analyst for Turner Sports and the Big Ten Network, and he knows college basketball as well as anyone. It's very my pleasure to welcome Andy Katz to the Rip City Drive. Andy, good afternoon. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me, Chad.
Well, Andy, you get a chance to travel around and, watch basketball games everywhere. And what we're excited about, once again, is to have March Madness in Portland at Moda Center for the first and second rounds on March 19th and the 21st. And what I love about the college basketball games here is that with the rich history with the Portland Trailblazers, I like it when these tournament games are played in, basketball-heavy towns where the fans go crazy. How do you enjoy those type of atmospheres?
I love it. In fact, I was there in Portland. When was it? Would have been 3 years ago. Last time I was there, when we had the whole Indiana cheerleader situation. We were sort of still masking, if I'm remembering correctly. Gonzaga was there. Drew Timme almost dropped an F-bomb on the air with me. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'll be there Sunday for Gonzaga, Oregon. I think it's a great basketball city, obviously. We know that with the rich history with the Blazers. And great that the WNBA is coming there. Obviously, Oregon men's and women's basketball. Oregon State's had its time. So, I think it's a great place to have the NCAA tournament. I like when they move it around in the West. For someone who's worked in the West for the beginning of my career, I a lot of times don't think the West gets its due for its venues to host the NCAA tournament.
We're talking to Andy Katz here on the Rip City Drive. Oregon and Gonzaga. The Zags right now 11-1. They look like a terrific basketball team. We're still trying to get a feel for what the Ducks are all about this year. What are you looking for in this game coming up on Sunday?
Yeah, I had Oregon as a Big Ten contender in the preseason, but that was based on the fact that Oregon was returning, two potential All-Big Ten players, Nate Biddle and Jackson Shelstad. Neither one has been fully healthy this season. Shelstad, of course, started the season on the shelf. Biddle, ankle injury. He has not been 100% the last couple of games. Kwame Evans has obviously stepped up recently, so that's been a big plus. But, we find this with Dana Altman teams. I don't know what it is, but his teams tend to, for various reasons, whether they start off slow just because they're meshing together or they got injuries, they've had a history of being second half of the season teams in the postseason, back in the Pac-12 tournament. So we'll see if they can do that. They don't have a lot of room for error right now. They've got to make sure that Matthew Knight Arena becomes a very dangerous home court again, to a place where they don't give up home losses. That's critical for their chances going forward here once we get into the new year. They cannot afford to continue to have this kind of deep hole and climb out of it because, they just have whiffed on a number of chances. And Sunday's game certainly would be their best win of the season if they can pull it off. They're catching Gonzaga at a bad time because the Zags, ever since they got blown up by 40 by Michigan in Vegas, have been on a mission. They've gotten healthy, and they're just tearing teams apart between that combination of Graham Ike and Braden Huff.
Yeah, you mentioned the Ducks, Andy, their ability to really get stronger as the year progresses. And I'm wondering if part of that's because of the way that Dana Altman conducts his practices. I'm sure you've seen that before, but, they compete really hard in practice, and they're not afraid to, go full court defense and stuff. And I like his mentality and the way he approaches things with their preparation. What have you noticed over the years with Dana Altman in terms of how he gets his group prepared, and what's that secret sauce for him?
Well, yeah, look, there's no question that he's got a great track record. He's had a Hall of Fame-type career in terms of wins and losses and success at various spots. The problem this time around is usually they pluck off at least a couple of quad one type wins, prior to the new year. That hasn't been the case right now. So I just feel like the hole is deeper, but there's enough talent on this team where they could basically win out at home and steal a couple on the road. There's no question they have the ability to do that and be right in position to get back in the tournament. And then once they're in, all bets are off. I mean, they certainly have the talent to win a couple of games in March. The other problem is, I remember Peyton Pritchard, and I can't remember the exact stat, but they have a program where it's very much like before the portal era, they were kind of run almost like an NBA team where there's a lot of turnover, G League, CBA, whatever you want to call it. And I remember there was a stat with Peyton Pritchard where he had played with like 100 and something players over his 4-year career. There'd been so many different players that have come through, on that roster, and he was that stable anchor to them. That's been fine for them in the past when they had someone like him. I think if Shelstad had started the season healthy, in his 3rd year, I believe now, that might have set them off a little bit better at this point. But the depth was in question. The injuries have been a problem. And for that reason, they've got their work cut out for them going forward.
Andy, a lot of people may not have taken notice because of all the football that's going on. But, dude, how good is this St. John's, Kentucky game tomorrow with Mark Pope and Rick Pitino? I can't wait.
Yeah, it's great. And this was a great example of, I thought the organizers, thus being in this case CBS Sports, when UCLA decided they were pulling out, and Mick Cronin's made it clear that he did not want to play non-conference games outside of the Pacific time zone because of the travel in the Big Ten, they approached St. John's because Kentucky was going to play UCLA, so they needed an opponent. And, it was so obvious for it to be St. John's. And Rick Pitino, unlike a lot of coaches, Pitino does not shy away from playing former players, former assistants, or even children. He's going to obviously play his son, Richard, twice this year because Xavier's now in the Big East, but he's played Richard before when he was at Minnesota, when he was at FIU, when he was at New Mexico. So, it's great because they know each other extremely well. Pope was on that 96 championship team for Kentucky. It's going to be in Catlanta. Kentucky really needs that kind of quad one win. St. John's is starting to play a little bit better than they did in Vegas. I think it's going to be a high-level game, late possession game, and certainly highly entertaining.
All right, one final question before you go, Andy, and I do appreciate your time. There's so many great young basketball players in the college game this year, and I've enjoyed watching a few of them. Cameron Boozer, of course, Caleb Wilson. There's a lot of them. Like, who are you enjoying of the youngsters right now in the game?
I think it's a historically great freshman class. Left out the number 1 pick, who I'm going to see tonight on TNT for BYU, AJ DeBonsa. I think he'll end up being the number 1 pick.
Stud.
The depth of this class. And how about in the Northwest? Anna Steinbach from Germany, from Washington, not getting the love nationally he deserves. He's a double-double machine. He's a lottery pick. There's, every league has a number of players that are going to be in that are freshmen that have a chance to be in the first round, let alone lottery. I think this is going to be a draft class that we're going to be talking about for quite some time.
All right, Andy Katz, who is a college football analyst for TNT, and, of course, he's going to be at the Oregon-BYU game on Sunday, which is great. And, of course, he'll be covering the tournament, which is coming back to Portland in March.
Oregon-Gonzaga.
What did I say?
I'm at BYU tonight. Oregon-Gonzaga Sunday.
That's right, Oregon and Gonzaga. My bad. But I'm glad you get a chance to see him tonight, which is great. But, Andy, I appreciate your time and wish you the best. Have a good time in the Northwest, buddy.
Thank you.
You got it. Andy Katz here on the Rip City Drive. Just cruising along here. Boy, this has been I love getting a chance to talk to different guests. I haven't talked to Andy Katz in a long time. Got a chance to talk to Bob Whitsitt, which was really nice. We'll talk with Joe DeLeon, who's coming up. Justin Ballinger, the sportsbook manager. He was with me at the beginning of the show, and he's going to join me again tomorrow. We'll be able to go a little bit more in depth, but I had to rush him along because of Bob Whitsitt. But he did kind of paint the picture. So last week, if you listen closely to Justin, he gave you the genius pick of New Orleans over Carolina. And why would that be? Well, because there were no bets coming in on New Orleans. Everyone was piling on one side in Carolina. He had one single bet on New Orleans, which was tied into a parlay. And the line was at 2.5 at the beginning of the week, and it did not move. And so if you have, and this is his philosophy here, if you have a team that's a favorite and all the money's coming in on one side, the favorite, and the line does not move, there's no adjustment by the book, then that tells you that they're pretty confident that they don't need to adjust the line because they think the other team's going to win. And the number and the line that he gave us to keep an eye on, and it's going to be fun to see how this develops over the next, 48 hours, is that Sunday night football game. And it's going to be the Patriots, who are coming off a loss. They had won, 10 or 11 in a row? They gave up a 21-0 lead to the Bills, and now they're on the road against the Ravens on Sunday Night Football. And according to what Justin said, all the money is coming in. It's flowing in, like a lot of flow, heavy flow on the Patriots, but yet the line is not adjusted. And so that's just something to keep an eye on, with the Ravens looking like they might be a pretty strong play if you're into that sort of thing. But we'll get more from Justin tomorrow, and it's going to be nice to be able to, just continue to focus on these playoff games. Oklahoma-Alabama is coming up in about 30 minutes or so from Norman. I've got family members who are going to be at the game. I know they're really excited, and I think the key is here for Oklahoma. This has really been a 2-year process where they have been waiting and waiting for this opportunity ever since Lincoln Riley left them high and dry for USC. Oklahoma fans were very bitter about that decision by Lincoln Riley. He jumped ship because he thought USC was going to be the golden goose and be his pathway to the playoff. And, of course, Lincoln Riley has underperformed, and Oklahoma went out and brought back one of their sons in Brent Venables. And look at Venables now. People thought Oklahoma was crazy. Why would you go to the SEC? The pathway in the Big 12 is easier. It's not about that. One, it's about being in a conference where you're going to be flush with cash so you can continue to run your athletic department. But more importantly, Oklahoma considers themselves and is one of the best programs in all of college football. So Venables went out and recruited. They're willing to spend and bring guys in through the portal and pay money. And now they've got a team that can go out and compete with anyone because of their defense. Now, John Mateer, ever since he suffered that hand injury against Auburn, has not been the same. They brought him back too soon against Texas, and the offense has sputtered ever since. So I don't know how well they're going to be able to move the football tonight, but I do know one thing. They got 41 sacks on the year. I think their defense is the best in the country. Venables is unafraid when it comes to blitzing and bringing pressure. And the one thing we've seen with Alabama over the last few weeks, inconsistent play with the offensive line, turnovers have become a factor, and just shaky. And we saw them got the crap beat out of them in the SEC title game against Georgia. So I think Oklahoma, based on defense, based on being at home, I think they're going to win a close game that's going to be low scoring. I think the total here is like 40.5. I would expect it to go under the posted total of 40.5. And I expect a low-scoring, probably a field goal game that Oklahoma's going to win. And then they will advance and move on, and I think they'll be in line to face Indiana. And you talk about a defensive battle, that game will be nasty too. Now, look, I respect Alabama. I always have, and I love their coach, but I just think Oklahoma's going to have too much defense at home to be able to get the job done. I just can't figure out what it is about their offense because Mateer early in the season before the hand injury looked great. But they just haven't been able to click. They haven't been consistent in running the football. The big plays down the field have been few and far between. And what's weird about Oklahoma is that they are excellent, great in two areas, defense and special teams. And as you know, football is a three-phase game, offense, defense, and special teams. They just haven't been able to figure out the offense. But they're superior to Bama when it comes to special teams and defense. And, of course, what did we see last night with the Seahawks? I mean, what a game that was, too, by the way. The Seahawks got a big-time special teams play. They got some timely defensive plays. And then finally Sam Darnold was able to, really, revive the offense late in that game. I had to go back and watch it again last night. I got home late from the Blazer game last night because nothing says I love you like a overtime Sacramento-Portland game in December. Got home late, couldn't fall asleep, so I watched and rewatched the Seahawk-Ram game. What a phenomenal game. When it was 30-14, Sam Darnold had just thrown another horrendous pick. They looked like they were dead. D-E-A-D, done. And then all of a sudden you get a defensive stop, you get a punt return for a touchdown. Darnold, after playing bad football for an extended period of time, comes out, gets the 2-point conversion to Kupp. And then before you know it, they're back down the field, touchdown, and then a miracle from God on the lateral that turned into a 2-point conversion. Game tied, and their defense got another stop there at the end of the game. They go into overtime, and then Matthew Stafford just boom, 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 right down the field, hits Nakua, touchdown, and you're like, they're done. But no, Sam Darnold with 2 more big plays, one to Jackson Smith and Jigba, the other one to Cooper Kupp, and they get in position, throws the touchdown to Njigba, and then they go for 2. And you knew they were going to go for 2. Why would you kick an extra point, tie the game, and allow the Rams to get a game-winning field goal when there's still over, 3 minutes on the clock? That'd be dumb. They go for 2, and then great play. The tight end did a great job of blocking, being patient, and then releasing late into his route. And when he came around, the defense lost him, and the play worked out perfectly. But with that 1 2-point conversion, the Seahawks get the win, and now the Rams, they went from being a sure lock to get the 1 seed to now being in a position where they're not going to win the division, and they're going to start out on the road and have to play multiple games on the road to get to the Super Bowl. And now you've got the 49ers who have been ravaged by injury, and nobody all year long has ever talked about San Francisco being the number 1 seed. The Seahawks and the 49ers control their own destiny for the 1 seed. Freaking amazing. Now, and they're going to play down in Santa Clara on the last game of the year. Is that amazing or is that amazing? Now, the 49ers, let me give you the pathway for the 2 teams. So the 49ers will play at the Colts on Monday night against Grandpa Rivers. They come back home and host the Bears on a night game on the 28th. And then they play and host the Seahawks on the final week of the regular season. So for the 49ers, at the Colts, home against the Bears, home against the Seahawks. For the Seahawks, after the win last night, they are on the road against Carolina. Now, before you say, no problem, we got the win, Carolina just beat the Rams a couple of weeks ago at home. They're not a great team, but they're dangerous, and they're playing much better football right now. Just something to keep an eye on. So it's pretty remarkable. So the Seahawks get Carolina and then the 49ers. But one of those 2 teams is going to be the 1 seed, and the Rams are going to be on the outside looking in. That's wild to me. All right, we'll keep things rolling. Joe DeLeon going to talk ball with me coming up at 5:20. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. I appreciate your time. You can reach out to me on the text line at 88528. 88528 or 503-248-0620. I'm live from Spirit Mountain Casino on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. All right, I got to get to this. The new head coach at Washington State, Kirby Moore, is a dum-dum. I've listened to this like 100 times. I don't understand how you can make this mistake. And not only that, but someone needs to be fired for the fact that he made this mistake. How can you not know this? Here is Kirby Moore being introduced as the new head coach at Washington State, and this is what this guy came out with. A severe hot take. Take a listen.
Moving forward, the time is now at Washington State to be the leader in the new Mountain West Conference.
The Mountain West Conference, huh? I mean, are you kidding me? Like, this guy just took over a job, supposed to be a pretty sharp guy from Prosser, Washington, and he thinks they're in the Mountain West Conference? How does that happen? And how did someone not get to him before he said that to let him know that, hey, you're going to be in the Pac-12? Now, there are going to be some Mountain West schools that are going to be joining the newly formed Pac-12, but it's the Pac-12 conference. But no, he just rolled out with Mountain West.
Moving forward, the time is now at Washington State to be the leader in the new Mountain West Conference.
I'm sorry, Coach, but you play in the Pac-12. Like, that's just a bad look. Like, you can't make that mistake, and whoever allowed him to make that mistake needs to be fired. And like Happy Gilmore's like, where are we on that one? The Mountain West Conference. You got to be kidding me. Someone got punched over that one, hopefully.
Moving forward, the time is now at Washington State to be the leader in the new Mountain West Conference.
Okay, here's what's really crazy, is that you can tell he's at a podium. He's reading. So he has a prepared statement, which means either he or his assistant or somebody typed that up. So I've got serious issues because, one, whoever the buffoon is that typed it up actually thought they were in the new Mountain West Conference. That's wrong. Number two, the fact that he read Mountain West Conference would lead me to believe one of two things. Either he didn't know that he's in the Pac-12 and not the Mountain West, which is really bad, or equally bad, he did not proofread the written statement that was prepared for him before he read it. And that reminds me, my buddy Jason Peterson, when we worked at the same station together back in the day at the game, he was on my show in the morning and he would do updates during the show. And we worked out of this program called News Boss. And so he would write, his update, and then other people could access News Boss and they would write their updates. So the update guy that would come on after Peterson, his name was Mr. Perkins. Perkins would always come in before our show was over to prepare his update. And so Peterson would mess with Perkins a lot and retype certain things that Perkins had put in the update to see if Perkins would notice it during his first update or if he would just read what Jason had typed in there. And I feel like that's the same type of situation here. Perkins learned to proofread his update before he did his first one because Peterson was messing with him. But how can the coach, Mr. Moore, not proofread the written statement? Or did he write it himself and just put it in Mountain West Conference? But this is one of those moments in life where you're like, I wish I could have that one back.
Moving forward, the time is now at Washington State to be the leader in the new Mountain West Conference.
Hey-o! Yeah, that's thanks, Coach. But you're going to be in the Pac-12. I mean, look, I understand, I've been to concerts before where, when, the lead singer or somebody from the band comes out to have discourse during the middle of the show, between songs. Maybe they're going to introduce the band or whatever, and they're like, hey, what's up, Portland? Sometimes because they've been on the road and they were in a different city the night before, and then the night before that, they may get mixed up. So you might be in Portland and say, what's up, Seattle? I can understand that, right? Because you're not reading off a prepared statement. You're just talking to a bunch of people listening to music. It's not a big deal. But if you're a head coach of a Division I program, you might need to know what conference you're going into. And I hope he's not telling recruits that they're going to be in the new Mountain West Conference. That would be a bad look, too. Hey, Mom, I don't think I should play for Coach Moore because he doesn't even know what conference he's in. Yeah, good point. Hit up Oregon State. It's like, come on, Kirby. Hey, Kirby, you need to be better, my friend. Come on, buddy. You cannot make that mistake. Hey, Kirby, don't say Mountain West Conference. So bad. Very bad. Come on, Kirby. What are we doing here, man? You're in the Pac-12.
Moving forward, the time is now at Washington State to be the leader in the new Mountain West Conference.
It's a good thing that Kirby's not one of my kids, or he would be at the bottom of the power rankings right now. The new Mountain West Conference. Hey-o! And what's really great here, too, is that the team he took over, Washington State, they technically were a part of tearing apart the Mountain West to rebuild the new Pac-12. Yeah, well, it happens. What's that? Is that the Snickers commercial? It's like, you need a break? Hey, Kirby, you need a Snickers right now? Why don't you regroup and then come back out and try that again? Not good. So his tenure's off to a shaky start, to say the least. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. My name is Chad. I am not part of the new Mountain West Conference. And we're going to talk football with Joe DeLeon coming up at 5:20. I'll play that for DeLeon. Mountain West. And the college football playoff is about to begin with Oklahoma, Alabama coming up at the top of the hour. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad doing. I'm live from Spirit Mountain Casino, your place to bet on college sports. This is a great song, Mr. Kyrie. And this reminds me of my 8th grade project that I did with John Colgate, who had moved out to the Northwest from Tennessee. We did a Civil War project, and one of the portions of that project was to interview a slave. And so we did the interview on an old school, like, cassette recorder where you put a tape in, you hit record, and you can record the audio back before we had technology and stuff. So I didn't have a blank cassette, and my mom had threatened to kill me if I recorded over another one of her, Elvis or gospel cassettes, where you put the tape on the end of the cassette and all of a sudden you can record things. I used to do that for the songs that would come on the radio all the time. Like when Out of Touch came out from Hall & Oates, that was one that I recorded. Because you would set your tape in your, cassette player, and you would have the play and record buttons pushed down with pause, so that way when you were listening to the radio, as soon as the song came on, you could hit the pause button and boom, you were set. So anywho, that's how we used to record things back in the day before, all this technology. Well, I didn't have a spare cassette, and so I thought, well, I'll just use the B-side of Mr. and record the interview with John. And so we turned in our project, and we ended up getting a perfect score on it and got a good grade. My teacher at the time in 8th grade was Mr. Kink, who was one of my favorite teachers of all time. He was my homeroom teacher, and I'll never forget it. He handed back the project, and there was a note that was in the bag I had put the cassette in with the recording of the slave. And so I read the note, and it said, hey, great job on the project, an excellent interview, but why in the world would you record over such a great album? Like, Mr. Kink's whole thought process with the project was, yeah, good job, but you chose to take a great album and record over it. Why would you do such a thing? And so that's what I remember from Mr. And not only that, but there are some things floating around on the internet with Mr. That's amazing. Richard Page is the front man for Mr. And he was a longtime session musician, great singer. I think he was offered the head job or the lead singing role with Toto, who was always looking for a head man. But he turned that down because he wanted to be in his own group, which was Mr. But they've recently got back together to where they could, record some stuff. And it's amazing to me because I think Richard Page, I think Dick is now 72 years old, and he still sounds like he's amazing. So let me just give you a little sampling of this was recorded just like 3 months ago. So the band got together at his crib, and they just decided to record Broken Wings. I don't know if it was some sort of an anniversary or what the deal was, but it just amazes me how good he sounds. But yeah, Mr. Kink was perturbed that I chose to record over such a great album. But I did do the B-side in my defense. It's amazing. So, I don't know. I've talked about it at length. You get tired of it, I know. But you have to admit, it is pretty awesome that we can pull up on YouTube all of these different things, interviews, live music, bands that we grew up watching that now want to get together in their crib and start playing music together. It's amazing. Like one time I saw a video where Neil Sedaka was in his kitchen playing his piano and singing. I think this might have been during COVID. And he's got, like, his parrot in the kitchen, like, watching him and, like, making noise and singing along with him. Like, to me, that's just, like, amazing. I love all of that stuff. It's so good. All right. My kids, let's find out how the rankings go after tonight. So my daughter wants to go and stay the night at her friend's house tonight. I have no issue with that. Probably geeked out of her minds because today was the last day of school before the extended Christmas break. So there were two simple requirements. One, you've got to feed puppy shots 2, you must wear a jacket because it's freezing balls outside. I do not understand why kids think that a jacket is optional when the weather is so pathetic. I just saw a highlight of Fred Couples. They've got one of the screens on the Golf Channel here. That swing is spectacular. Gosh, I love Freddie so much. Anywho, so the question is, will my daughter complete the 2 simple tasks of wearing a jacket and feeding puppy shots before she takes off to her friend's house? My thought is no. She's not wearing a jacket, and puppy shots is probably going to starve. But that's okay. That's what kids do. Oh, no problem. I got you, Dad. I can do that. Then why didn't you do it? I don't understand the whole process. Being a dad, I don't have the answers. It's the one thing in life, being a father, that I've never really felt like I have a good handle on things. I have no idea what's going on half the time. And there's no blue book. No one prepares you for this kind of stuff. Half the things I'm presented with, I'm like, I have no idea. Is that normal, or am I like an idiot? That's how I feel as a parent most of the time. I have no idea of how to handle different scenarios. But I can smell the BS when it's coming, though. And kids, thankfully, typically do a pretty bad job at lying. Or you can tell when they might not be, when they're not exactly being 100% clear. Like when I ask them about their specific plans and I get a bunch of word salad, I know right away that they could be trying to pull something over on me. The good thing about Isaac, though, with his condition, there's no BS there. Isaac is unfiltered. He's not cold filtered. He is unfiltered. Whatever's on his mind, he will communicate clearly with me. And I just think that's great. There's something about Isaac when he looks at me and goes, Dad, you're really pissing me off. I would never have said that to my dad when I was younger, but Isaac will say that to me. I think it's hilarious because at least you know where you stand. If he's happy, he'll tell you, and if he's mad at you, he'll tell you. And sometimes kids aren't going to say that. I would have never told my dad when I was younger, Dad, I appreciate your input, but you're really pissing me off right now. Can you imagine saying that to your dad? Dude, I grew up in the day when spanking was still considered socially acceptable. And trust me, I had my fair share of, whoopings, so to speak. The kind of whoopings where you sneak into your room because you know it's coming a little bit later, and you slide on a few extra pair of underwear to provide extra padding. Not that that did any good, but anything you could do to prepare for the beating that was coming to your backside. Yeah, that went down. Or my grandma would tell me that I could go pick my own switch. Here, I'm going to spank you, but you get to choose the instrument of punishment that you want to be hit with. Are you kidding me? And then my grandma, it's funny, when she would spank us, then she would go in her room and cry because she was upset about it. And I would say, I used to think that was a load of crap. This is going to hurt me more than it's going to hurt you. Really? Well, why don't you give me that piece of lumber right there and let me whack you in the bottom, and we'll see if that is the case. But I do think it's true. Punishing your children is not easy. Sometimes it is because they tick you off so much. But, yeah, I knew my dad is a fairly quiet man. There were only a couple times where I was able to raise his temperature, and that was usually in a form of some sort of disrespect to my mom. And then we also knew that if Dad was at work and we were at home with Mom and she had to chase us around with the wooden spoon or something, if we were laughing and acting like fools, that my dad was probably going to destroy us when we were younger. I got spanked at school once by the principal, Leo Harrington. That was a scary guy. He was a scary dude. He brought out the paddle in the hallway and spanked me until I started crying with the doors on the other classrooms open. Can you imagine that now? That would make headline news if a kid was brought out in the hallway with a paddle and spanked in front of other students with the doors to the other classrooms open. But they did it back then. My parents did not try to sue the school. They were not upset. My dad apologized for me being a moron and promised that I would get more when I got home. And I did. That would never happen now. Isn't that crazy? But I will say this. I did not make any Bronx cheers with my underarms after I got spanked by Leo Harrington and my dad. I got the twofer. Leo Harrington and my dad. And as scary as Leo was, and he was scary, he's just one of those guys old school. He was exactly what you would think a principal would be back in the day. He hated kids. I never understood that. I was like, hey, Leo, you're at an elementary school and you are a principal. Why did you choose this gig if I think that you might hate us? Can you explain that to me? No. Okay, thanks. But he was scary. So anyways, that's a long way of saying that I doubt that Kaylee is going to feed shots and wear a jacket. But we'll find out. Maybe she'll surprise me, and then she can inch up in the power rankings ahead of Puppy Shots. So there you have it. Oklahoma and Alabama getting ready to kick off as we get ready with the college football playoff, which is pretty awesome. Great scene in Norman. I love these campus site games. They're the best. And we need more of this. All playoff games in college football should be on a campus site aside from the national championship. And the sooner these old crusty bastards get rid of the bowl games, the better. Hey, morons, we don't need your bowl games anymore. We need campus site games. Do you understand that? Do you understand how epic it is to see college football being played on a campus site in the playoffs? No offense, but we don't need your Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl or the Rose Bowl or any other overrated experience. Give us the campus site games, you idiots. That stuff drives me crazy, too. And these people that hold on to the Rose Bowl like somehow it's special. I've been to the Rose Bowl. Place is a dump. No offense. Give us the campus site games. Like, how awesome is that going to be tomorrow when we tune in and Autzen Stadium is off the chain welcoming in James Madison for a playoff game? You think that's going to be pretty good? All right, John Mateer's first play looked like every other offensive play that they've had ever since he got his hand hurt. He drops back, no one's open, scrambles around, and picks up no yards. Nice to see that they're off to a good start. Their offensive coordinator, Ben Arbuckle, you should be ashamed of yourself. You had all that time to prepare, and your first play nets 0 yards because nobody's open, and Mateer has to scramble and run for nothing. Really good job. So this is probably going to be low scoring. I would say if the total's at 40.5, I'll take the under, and I think Oklahoma will win a close game. So we'll see how things shake out. Triple header tomorrow. I'll be down here at Spirit Mountain Casino for all 3 games. I'm going to be on air from noon until 3. I've got giveaways. This is your place to bet on college sports. You can get in on the action with the Oregon Ducks, parlays, teasers, totals, prop bets, in-game betting on the kiosk. Basically everything you could possibly want. It's like a smorgasbord of sports activity down here. So get your asses down here tomorrow, all right? You don't want to be at home. Why, so you can be put to work and do like some type of honeydew stuff when you got major college football going on? No one wants that. All right, the Sooners facing a 3rd down and 6. And they have an incompletion? Or is it a first down? Yeah, first down. Okay, we'll come back. We're going to talk football. Joe Daly on one of my favorites. I appreciate your time. Rip City Drive on your home of the Blazers. Rip City Radio 620. All right, I love talking football with this guy, and how kind was he to give us some of his time tonight. Very happy to welcome Joe DeLeon back to the Rip City Drive. And, Joe, happy college football playoff day to you, my friend.
Yeah, no, I'm fired up. It's been a long season to finally make it here to this point to watch these games. It's almost surreal.
I know, it's so awesome. I just hope that sometime in the near future they get rid of the bowl games and give us campus site games for every playoff game except for the national championship, because it is awesome to go in and see some of these different scenes with the playoff, man. I love it.
And also to that point, some of the bowl game sites that were hosting some of the playoff games didn't completely fill out their stadiums. So there's a really good point with that. I think that there's such a passion that you're catching with this, and you're seeing here for the Oklahoma-Alabama game, it's a rocking crowd right now. I do agree. I think more of these opportunities to see home games would be cool, but sadly the grip that the bowl system has on the sport is just forever going to keep that from occurring.
Yeah, as soon as we get rid of the old guys who have been lining up their fat-ass pockets for years with money and we can get to campus site games, I'm going to be happy about that. But, with Oklahoma tonight, I mean, don't you feel like this is a big moment for Sooner fans from the standpoint that I feel like they've been waiting for this opportunity ever since Lincoln Riley jumped and went to USC, and finally they get a chance to showcase what they're all about with their new coach in Brent Venables. How do you see it?
Well, and I think a part with that, too, is that they – ex-wife type of a situation here where, you get broken up with and they leave you at the altar to go be with somebody else. You see them not succeeding, you're succeeding, and everybody also was telling you, all the SEC fans were telling you that you weren't going to survive. You weren't going to be able to last with the schedule that you had. And last year was brutal. Last year was a disappointment. And then eventually they were able to break through this year. Everything worked in their favor. They were able to grit out defensive wins, which is the opposite of what we were used to seeing under Oklahoma since Stoops was the coach. And then Lincoln Riley, it was a lot of big play offenses and explosiveness. I think that this team has shown that they're built not only to compete in the playoff and to have earned a right to be in the playoff, but for the long-term future in the SEC, they're building through the trenches. They just got to get their offensive line right and their run game right, and they can really, really go toe-to-toe with a lot of these top teams.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Don't you think that's a mark of a good head coach? I don't know how you look at it, but we know with Venables, defense is his expertise. And so when I look at a head coach, whether he's offense or defense, when they get their side of the ball solved and operating at a good level quickly, then that tells me that they know what they're doing. But I see that with Oklahoma. You're right. They don't feel like a Big 12 school at all now. They look like an SEC team.
Yeah, and the biggest switch for them was when Brent Venables took over the defensive play calling this year. And there was just such a difference in the intensity of the group. I feel like last year you saw the athletes, you saw the plays that were, that they were able to make, and some guys flying all over the field, but it just wasn't consistent. Just the demeanor that they needed to have wasn't there. And Venables is a very passionate guy, and he's a very deliberate and aggressive play caller as a defensive coordinator. And now you're seeing that bleed into how they're playing games. And it just happened there on this first defensive drive where they forced a 3-and-out. They got a big stop on a rundown and got after Ty Simpson, and inevitably led to an incompletion.
All right, one more question about Oklahoma. What's been the problem with the offense? Ever since the Mateer injury, his completion percentage has dipped about 8%. They're, averaging less than 200 yards passing per game. Is it the offensive line? Is the injury? What do you see in there? Because it's been pretty brutal to watch.
Well, I think it's been a number of things. The hand injury, to recover from that, and on top of it, to try and throw every single week while you're recovering from it seems pretty brutal. On top of this, though, they hadn't really been challenged before he suffered the injury by any teams that had, really threatening defenses. I know that Michigan was a solid team this year, but they hadn't really faced anyone that was going to get in their face. And I think that once Mateer came back banged up and they started going up against the quality teams on their SEC schedule, it showed some cracks. And the cracks that were revealed, that their offensive line, with how many different lineups that they shuffle in and out of there, their offensive line just wasn't ready to be able to pave lanes in the run game. And it felt like a lot of what was setting up their passing attack was that they were able to run the ball effectively. John McTeer was able to run the ball effectively, and a lot of that was taken away. And eventually that just led to, it felt like McTeer trying to do a little bit too much, which inevitably hurt his completion percentage and it impacted his accuracy. They got to get their O-line right. They got to get it figured out. It's been a multi-year process here for Venables trying to find the right bodies. It took a lot of reshuffling, and it still doesn't feel like they're totally there.
We're talking to the great Joe DeLeon here on the Rip City Drive. I want to play this for you. I've listened to it about 200 times. I still can't believe it. Kirby Moore, brother of Kellen Moore, from Prosser, Washington, exited from the staff at Missouri to take over the head coaching job at Washington State. And this is what he had to say at the opening presser.
Moving forward, the time is now at Washington State to be the leader in the new Mountain West Conference.
I mean, how does he make that mistake, and how does someone around him allow him to make that mistake? Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I mean, that's not a good start. I did catch that on Twitter. You're trying to start hot here. You're trying to galvanize everybody, talking like you're at a lower level, at a lower conference, when the Pac-12 is trying to have all this hype and whatnot. It's just, that's tough. That's absolutely tough.
So bad. All right, tomorrow Oregon is going to take on James Madison. Like, the Ducks are going to win the game. I don't doubt that. They're favored by more than 3 touchdowns. But James Madison, really good defensively, mobile quarterback, which Oregon has struggled with to a degree. Like, do you think James Madison will provide any resistance, or do you expect Oregon to steamroll them?
No, there's going to be no resistance. I think that Oregon's going to smoke them. And for the first part, when we watched at the beginning of the year, when they saw significantly inferior opponents, they didn't take their foot off the gas. That's Dan Lanning's MO. He understands what comes out of a blowout victory. It's a confidence builder. It really makes you feel good when you really, really overwhelm an opponent to that degree where you blow them out by a ridiculous number. Oklahoma State, Montana State, they worked them. The other thing, too, with this JMU team, they're really not that impressive. They've got a good record. They've won their way through the Sun Belt. In the Sun Belt Championship game, they were in a dogfight with Troy until the fourth quarter. And they also allowed a lot of big plays to Ra Thomas, a former Power 4 wide receiver who was on that Troy team. You ended up seeing some cracks with that secondary that I think is going to get really threatened by this Oregon passing attack. I just don't think that they've got the bodies of the athletes to keep up with them. Good for them for getting here. It was a technicality that got them here, but they're not going to be able to put up much of a fight.
Do you think Oregon now, this year, up front in the trenches with the play they've had from their offensive and defensive lines, are they good enough to compete with anybody in this playoff field now and potentially win a championship?
I think that they are, and I know that their sack production has not been as exciting as I think a lot of people hoped it could have been. There was maybe this belief that, hey, Mateo Uiagalelei takes a jump forward and the whole group just ends up being overwhelming. I think that, though, you still see the physicality and the depth. I'm a big Amari Washington fan. I think he's a really, really underrated player, and he just wreaks so much havoc in the interior. I think that this defense is solid enough for them to be able to go to war with Texas Tech. And we already saw them play in a tight game against Indiana. And I think that in a rematch situation on a neutral field, it's going to be a spot that Dan Lanning should be able to steal one. It's hard to beat a good team twice. I didn't think that there was much separation between those two squads when they played the first time. It just happened that Indiana ended up executing in the areas where they needed to finish that thing off. But this Oregon team absolutely can get there, and it'll be really interesting to see if Evan Stewart and Corey Moore are ready to go, because if they are, that could be a separator for them hitting another gear that we didn't even know that they had.
Oh, that's a good point about the receivers. With Dante Moore, look, I've just assumed all along that he's going to jump to the NFL draft, but now there's, whispers around here that he might come back for another season. What's your take on that situation? Should Dante come back for another year? Should he jump to the draft? How do you see that?
I'm mixed on it because I'm generally of the belief that playing more football for quarterbacks, very specifically quarterbacks, is good. There's so many guys that have played long careers. I mean, Bo Nix is the guy that the Ducks just saw that was there for a long period of time, and he finally played to his true potential of being a top player in the country by sticking around and just being around football for so long. And I think that Dante Moore could hit another gear, but at the same time, he without a doubt would be one of the top 2 quarterbacks selected. He could be in the running to be the first overall pick. I think that it's going to come down to what style of quarterback teams want between him and Fernando Mendoza. This quarterback class is really weak. Ty Simpson cooled off a lot, and it seems like outside of even Simpson, if he still goes in the first round, there's nobody else. Brendan Sorsby, if he goes in the transfer portal permanently and transfers instead of entering the draft, which I know is up in the air, he's like the last guy that might get considered. John Mateer maybe, but as we talked about earlier, he had a rough second half of the year. He's probably more of a day 2 prospect. Dante Moore would get a lot of consideration for being a very, very high draft pick. So that would, I think, be the motivator for even if he isn't fully developed. The other part of this, too, is losing Will Stein. You don't really know what the offense can be like next year. You had a really good year this year, but why risk trying to figure out things with a new OC when your draft stock is as high as it's possibly going to be?
That's very interesting. Another quarterback that you and I like, Sam Levitt, will transfer from Arizona State and go elsewhere. According to all the reports, all the big schools would have interest. Texas Tech, potentially Indiana, Miami, potentially Oregon. Do you have any ideas on what might be the best fit for Levitt to, kind of regroup after the foot injury and improve his draft stock?
Yeah, I think that the 2 schools that get me really intrigued are LSU and Miami. I think that Miami, knowing the Shannon Dawson's offense and the way that it's worked with mobile quarterbacks, specifically Cam Ward, who both he and Levitt are very good improvisational guys, like point guard style playmakers. I think that fit would be really exciting. But, man, I just think about Lane Kiffin and what he got out of Jackson Dart. And the athletic traits are similar to Jackson Dart. The ability to throw on the run is similar to Jackson Dart. And the aggressiveness is similar to Jackson Dart. It's not a one-to-one comparison, but I think that you could unlock a lot of the same production that Dart had in his final years when he was at Ole Miss and playing for Kiffin. So I think that LSU destination would ultimately be the best spot for him, and he could end up becoming one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC.
Boy, that'd be a lot of fun to watch, Sam Levitt with Lane Kiffin for sure. You mentioned Jackson Dart. I wanted to ask you, because I know you're close to the Giants situation. Like, I love Jackson Dart, and I love his toughness, but how do you coach a quarterback to be smarter about the hits that he chooses to take to protect his body? Because I'm concerned that he's getting himself, severely hurt, and he's such a great talent.
Yeah, I think it's something that's not going to be coached out of him immediately. I think that one thing that's bothered me hearing Brian Daboll was talking about this before he got fired, and then now Kafka, the interim, keeps saying it like, oh, we don't want to coach that out of him. We don't want him to lose his aggressiveness. It's this repeated belief that you don't want him to play too cautiously, but at the same time, I think that they need to be really deliberate about saying, Jackson, you got to slide. Jackson, you got to stop trying to put your body on the line, because it will cost him. The amount of medical evaluations that he keeps having and not having concussions, it's going to just keep going up, and then eventually he's going to start suffering real injuries and real serious injuries. I think that he does need to just approach things a lot more casually, and he doesn't need to think that he needs to put everything on his shoulders. I think first and foremost that they need to do less with him as a runner. I think that they need to figure out their run game, and he needs to not be the primary option. Josh Allen is obviously important for the Bills' offense and what they do, but they're not solely relying on him as a runner. He runs when he needs to. There are design situations when he runs, but the amount of times that Dart is effectively like the focal point of a rushing play, that to me is what's maybe kind of contributing to this.
We're talking to Joe DeLeon here on the Rip City Drive. Miami and Texas A&M will kick off tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. I feel like you might be getting good value with the Canes at plus 3.5. I do like how they've played up front, especially with their interior running game with that offensive line. How do you see this matchup?
Yeah, I think that A&M's going to win this. I think that, we were talking about earlier with Oklahoma and the importance of this for getting here. Talk about A&M and how they've been scratching and clawing to be this relevant, and now they're here. And the other part that comes with it is that they were in the sights of getting to an SEC championship game and got embarrassed by their biggest rival, who they tried to escape from the shadow of. And I think that with that comes a lot of motivation, similar to the motivation that Ohio State had last year when they lost to Michigan. I think if they internalize that and they really put their sights on Miami, they should be able to beat them, and they should be able to advance. This is going to be in a really rowdy home setting for A&M. And I think the other part with this is that Miami's secondary has had issues this year going up against the best passing attacks that they saw when they faced Louisville and they faced SMU. They lost those games because they gave up big plays to two individual receivers on those particular teams. I think that Craver and Concepcion are going to get after that secondary and produce a lot of big plays.
Gosh, I can't wait to watch that. I wanted your take on the AFC. I'm a Broncos fan, so I'm pretty excited about 11 straight wins and the pass rush and the idea of the Broncos playing at home. And Bo Nix over the last month has been great. But, man, the conference now compared to like 6 or 7 weeks ago, you take a look around and you've got Denver that's on fire, New England, which has been upstart throughout the season. They've been impressive with Coach Vrabel. And now the Texans and the Jags are both on fire, and you've still got Josh Allen, who's the best player in the world probably. So how do you look at the AFC and who you think are the main teams to potentially come out and represent in the Super Bowl?
Man, I really think it's going to be Josh Allen's year this year, and I know that their record doesn't really reflect that because they dropped a couple head-scratching games in the middle of the year. The way that they were able to rally against the Patriots really caught my attention, and I thought that was like, oh, okay, they're locking in. They're really ready to go. I think the biggest part with all this is the year that he needs to get to a Super Bowl, Josh Allen. Forget like the Bills, forget all that. Josh Allen, this is the year that he needs to get to the Super Bowl. There's no Mahomes. There's no Joe Burrow. There's potentially no Lamar Jackson in the playoffs. It's all these young dudes that are leading their teams. It's Bo Nix. It is Drake May. Now is their shot. Now is his shot to get there and to win a Super Bowl. I think that in a year where it feels like there's more parity than ever, they need to make that push, and I think that the focus from this Bills squad is going to get them there. It just feels like one of those seasons where maybe everything hasn't been great, but they've willed their way to victories in particular situations that have kept them in the mix for winning the division.
All right, one final question for you, Joe. How great was that football game last night with the Hawks and the Rams? I've seen some great Thursday night football games, but, man, that one was riveting. Yeah,
and I got to be quite honest with you. I dismissed the game for a period of time. I was like, oh, this is a blowout. I don't need to pay too close attention to this. And then, to figure out, to go back and make sure I didn't miss the end of it in the controversy of it. It's ridiculous. And the craziest part about all of it is how it affects the seeding in the NFC, where it looked like the Rams were in the driver's seat, quite literally in the game, and also if they won, they would have had a nice little cushion. But now that they lost, the Seahawks are in the driver's seat, and the 49ers are potentially in position, if they went out and they beat the Rams coming up, that they could end up being the number one seed in the NFC. Yeah, it's really, really crazy, and I think that is, it's just built up the seeming balance, apparently, with the teams in the playoff this year.
Well, Joe, I certainly love talking with you, buddy. Hey, enjoy the smorgasbord of football this weekend because we got the playoff tonight with Bama and Oklahoma. We got 2 NFL games tomorrow, which are great, with a triple header in the college football playoff leading into an NFL Sunday. It doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah, of course, and I'm fired up. I appreciate you having me as always.
Thanks, buddy. There's Joe DeLeon. Absolutely love talking with him. There you have it. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. I'm with him. It's like, if Dante Moore wants to go back to college for another, that's great. But if you know you're going to be the top pick taken in the draft, how do you pass that up? That would seem a bit insane. All right, we'll keep things rolling. I'm live here at Spirit Mountain Casino, and I'm down here tomorrow from noon until 3. I want you to come down and join me for the college football playoff. Ducks will kick off at 4:30. Parlays, teasers, totals, prop bets, everything you want. This is your place to bet on college sports. and the BetMGM Sportsbook. I'll be down here tomorrow noon to 3. Drink specials. I'll have some giveaways, and we can watch some football and enjoy it together. All right, we'll keep things rolling here. Rip City Drive on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. All right, Oklahoma just got a 51-yard field goal from Sendell and now have a 10-0 lead first quarter. So Oklahoma, they've been winning the battle of field position, and their defense has been sensational, as I thought, and the offense has been better than what I anticipated. 45 seconds to go first quarter. Oklahoma on top of Alabama by a score of 10-0. All right, telephone number 503-248-0620. Big thanks to all my guests today. Justin Ballinger, sportsbook manager here at Spirit Mountain Casino, stopped by. He'll join me again tomorrow for a more in-depth preview of the college football playoff games in the NFL weekend. I'll be down here from noon until 3. Big thanks to Bob Whitsitt, former Trailblazer general manager. Great to hear the stories from him. We'll honor the 99-2000 team coming up with the game against Detroit Monday. Big thanks to Andy Katz for talking a little college basketball, and then Joe DeLeon for talking a little football with me. So hope you're enjoying the college football playoff. There's no doubt that they've got to get rid of the bowl games because these campus site games are so good. So good. The atmospheres. And my favorite thing about college football, and the reason why I love traveling around and going to different games when I have a chance, is because I love to see how each town, each university, how they do game day. You know, how they celebrate their pageantry and the way that they get set up for a game. I love that kind of stuff, and I'm all about it. So I love that. And, you know, obviously we're going to see, you know, some great scenes with these campus site games. Right now at Oklahoma, tomorrow Oregon. Autzen Stadium, you know, is going to be off the chain, which is going to be awesome. We'll get a chance to see Kyle Field. And then, of course, Ole Miss doing it without Lane Kiffin, which is going to be awesome. So we'll see if Alabama can, you know, mount a response. But right now, Oklahoma early in the first quarter dominating action. So we'll see if Alabama has a response. But that Oklahoma defense with Brent Venables is dominant. Dominant. I mean, their pass rush, the way they get pressure on the quarterback, they don't give up a lot of big yards in the run game. You know, you can win a lot of football games playing great defense. Like when you got a lockdown, shutdown defense, you can win a lot of football games. So love to see that. I'm still blown away by that overtime game last night with the Seahawks and the Rams, and how that game is single-handedly going to change the landscape in the NFC, because the Rams looked like they were going to be the shoo-in for the number 1 seed, and now they're not. It's going to be the Hawks or the 49ers more than likely who get the 1 seed, and now the Rams, as great as they've played all year, will be on the outside looking in, and we'll have to play on the road. That's crazy to me. Like, it's unbelievable. So we'll see how that works out. The Broncos right now, clear path to the number 1 seed unless they completely blow it. Unless they screw it up. They should be fine. But that's going to be a good game this weekend with Jacksonville and Denver. And I love how these other teams in the AFC that aren't getting the attention that other teams are. I love how Houston's playing right now with their defense and their pass rush and the way they just lock you down. I think they got the best defense in the NFL. And Jacksonville right now, you know, finally getting solid play, big plays from Trevor Lawrence. They stop the run. They're opportunistic on defense. I think they're number 2 in the NFL in turnover ratio. Love the way Jacksonville's playing right now. So we're going to have some great games coming down, you know, the rest of the way. And there's good games tomorrow, too. Love the Packers-Bears game. You know, how the Packers respond. Justin did point out to me that he has taken very few bets. I think 92% of the wagers right now on the Bears, who started out as an underdog but now are favored. And that could be a Packer spot, 5:20 on Fox tomorrow. The Packers traditionally over the years have owned the Bears. That game is critical for the NFC North. And, of course, the Packers got the win over the Bears just 2 weeks ago. So we'll see how things shake out in that one tomorrow. But could be a Packer spot. But it's going to be tough. You know, they lose Micah Parsons, lose Christian Watson. The injuries really mounted on them in that Denver game last week. But Jordan Love's still having a big year. I think he's only thrown like 6 picks, got over 3,000 yards passing, ultra productive. And they've got nearly a 1,000-yard rusher in Swift. Chicago's got nearly a 1,000-yard rusher in Shipp. Their rush game has been terrific. So I'm pumped, man. Love these games. So Bears-Packers tomorrow night going to be awesome. And the big games on Sunday I'm going to keep an eye on. Chargers at the Cowboys. Love that one. The Buccaneers and Panthers play twice, you know, over the final 3 weeks of the season to determine the NFC South. Both teams sit at 7-7, and both teams are coming off miserable losses. Buccaneers fell to the Falcons at home. Panthers lost on the road to the Saints. So both teams trying to regroup and reset, knowing that they've got 2 meetings with each other over the final 3 weeks to determine the division winner. Jacksonville and Denver is probably the best game of the day in terms of quality of play, 10-4 against 12-2. And 2 young quarterbacks are playing really well right now. And then the Patriots and the Ravens on Sunday Night Football. And as was pointed out, very interesting that the Patriots are getting all of the action, but that line is hovered right around Baltimore -3. And why is that? So it could be based on what we saw last week with the Panthers and the Saints, that the Ravens may be a strong play on Sunday night based on the money movement because all the bets are coming in on the Patriots, but the line has not been adjusted by the books. So just something to keep an eye on. All right, so tomorrow, big day. I'll be down here from noon to 3, special edition of the Rip City Drive. And then the Trailblazers are going to be in action against the Kings. And then Monday they'll be back home for the first of a back-to-back for games starting out against Detroit. Alabama's got a punt on 4th down and 3. Oklahoma holding a 10-0 lead in Norman. Big thanks to Michael Shacker and to all of you for listening. It means a lot to me. I appreciate you. I will talk to you tomorrow live from Spirit Mountain Casino, your place to bet on college sports. Noon to 3 I'll be on. Come down and join me tomorrow for the college football playoff.